Hey guys, so excited about this episode of the 88 Show. I have a very special guest, Dr. Shakila Angadi, the inspired dentist, with me talking about all things emotional health. Thanks for being here. Tell me, let's go back to the start a little bit. Like how did you even get into dentistry?
Dentistry, oh man. How long is this?
Yeah.
Like, no, dentistry, I got into dentistry thinking that I wanted to help people. For me, it didn't come right into like, oh, I want to be in people's mouths. Like nobody really, no offense, nobody really grows up dreaming of being in people's mouths. But the idea of helping people and helping them feel better has always been like super ingrained in what I wanted to do. So it was very optimistic, but in a good way. I think most of us going into dental school, we're like, we're gonna save the world. We're gonna like change people and define, you know, what they can be. So that's what kind of led me into it, but you don't realize what you're getting into until you're already in it.
Right. And so then you've got this kind of typical path of being an associate and then getting your own practice and then success and then family and all this stuff, and then right up until you made a big move this year.
I finished dental school. I married an amazing person. We had a child. Then 10 months later, I bought a practice, and we sat there, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing this for? What am I doing? Why am I not happy? Like, if all the choices we make are supposed to equal success, why am I not happy with it? I think that the quintessential idea of I'm a dental success is buying a practice. And that's what you get out of school thinking that is your goal. But not everybody, one, not everybody is cut out to own a practice, and they don't realize that. But two, it's not always what you think it is. And the expectation that things are going to get easier buying a practice is not such. You start second guessing every choice that you've made. And that's hard. That's really hard.
One of the podcasts I had heard you on, you made this quote that said, it's like every great story has a struggle.
That's where I think my whole journey has been so amazing, is that I've embraced the mess ups. Like messing up is good. Struggling was good. The best thing that happened to me was hitting rock bottom and feeling like a failure. That was the best thing that happened to me, because that's where I had to ask myself the hard questions. Like, what is it that I want? I never spent any time up until that point going, what do I want? When you start second guessing everything you've done, like your entire life as you know it, it leads to a lot of like dark, vulnerable places if you're not sure how to feel in that moment. And I think a lot of us are scared to find out what that would look like. You know, and being depressed or having sad feelings and thoughts, like, you know me, I'm a big fan to know that emotions are an indicator of something deeper. And if we don't deal with that and we keep just stuffing it down like society expects us to, where does that lead us?
So I mean, over here in our staff meeting, you said something, you had this phrase that really stuck out to me, because I'm like, it probably really titles me or describes me very well, but it was unflexible perfectionism. When you said that, I was like, dang, I mean, I feel like I'm recovering from that. And there's times I'm really good with it, but then there's times where I'm like, you kind of default back into it. But you said dentists struggle with that. What is that? Tell us about it.
I think it's the idea that once you've made a decision, that is it. And it has to go to perfection every single time. You're not allowing for the reality of life to come in. That's where they struggle, is they don't understand that something is not going to go the way they anticipated it. And that's a big reality check. What do we do then? Do we sit and go, I'm an absolute complete failure? Or do we exercise the idea that if this didn't work out, what else is there? And if we've already blocked ourselves, I'm a failure, I can't move, I can't change, this was supposed to go the way it was supposed to go, and we stay in that space, then how do we grow? Like, there's a lot of good that can come out of our mistakes, you know? And I think that as a recovering perfectionist, one thing you realize is it's good to have goals and it's good to have ideas, but it's not good to expect no change. If change is the constant and that's what we need to accept, wouldn't that change the way we think about everything?
Yeah, right.
Like we have, as humans, we like stability. We like to have the idea that once we're in this happy place, we're going to stay there. But what if that's the outlier and change is actually what is the constant?
Yeah. Probably one of the biggest lessons, honestly, I've learned as a business owner is that I am the most demanding boss that I know, to myself. Like, take all the bosses I've ever worked for, and I've had some demanding ones. Like, as soon as it was like I was my own boss, I took that to like a whole nother level, and quickly realized that that was suffocating. It was heavy. It was like this heavy burden on my shoulders, you know? And so it's like, I can barely live up to that, much less anybody else. And so quickly had to like kind of deal with that and my drive and ambition and those things.
And resetting expectations, right? Like, you are not a failure because somebody else, you know, did something that wasn't up to your standard. And are we projecting our expectation of ourselves on someone else? And how is that fair to that staff member if they made a mistake and that's an opportunity for growth, but we're hard on them? How come you didn't get this done yesterday? Why wasn't it not done to what I expected it to be? And having that inflexibility, that's why I like that term. If we're not taking the idea that every setback is an opportunity to grow. And what if that is where we need to be focusing on? If you as the business owner are equating every mistake as a failure, and now that's you, and you're a failure because of that mistake.
The whole like mental health, like emotional EQ has been such a just journey of mine through this. Talk about what, I mean, just like that concept, because it's not like it's new, but it's definitely getting some buzz right now. It's
a buzzword right now, and it's ironic because it's been around for a good 15 years, where IQ was then divided into all these different quotients. So EQ, emotional quotient, you know, you have your interpersonal quotient, you have your intelligence quotient, you have all these different types of quotients, but ultimately emotional intelligence can actually be learned. You can learn and grow it, whereas your intelligence quotient, you got what you got. You know, like that's it. Like there is nothing else. Whereas if you can learn to understand your emotions in the moments that you feel them and use those emotions as a tool to make and go with better decisions, that is so powerful. And they are finding that people who have higher EQs do better in business because it trickles down to their communication, their interpersonal skills, their creative problem solving. I mean, all the ingredients you need to fight the fires that do come with owning a business. And it's interesting because people go, oh, well, that's just a bunch of, you know, I don't know if I really want to be in touch with my emotions. And the first thing I ask is, well, what are you afraid of? Because it's always a fear holding someone back.
So instead of like the dentist spending the next spending their money on the next clinical education course that comes up, you'd make the argument for investing it in their emotional intelligence.
Oh, absolutely.
But is that a hard sell?
I think it is because of the mindset of what they equate to success. If I'm a better clinical dentist, I will be more successful. But in my eyes, it's if I'm a better leader, if I'm a better visionary, I think it comes down to what do you want as a leader and as a business owner, and then grow everything outside of that. Your patients aren't going to come to you because you have a syrup machine. They're going to come to you because they like you, that you're friendly, you're approachable, your team has the same vibe. Those are my favorite patients.
It's all
the
emotional.
ones, it's all emotional. And guess what? It's all connection based. So it's not because you had the best and brightest of the technology. It's how you were as a person and a leader, and how you convey that to your staff and the environment that then attracts the type of patient that you want.
Well, I know you work with dentists in this space, consulting, which we'll talk about. I would have to imagine that it becomes that it's an episode that triggers that conversation.
I think it's a domino effect. I think it's multiple things that get to the point where they've tried so many things. They've tried all the consulting, they've tried all the business stuff, every time there's a problem, we as dentists seem to think it's a business issue or it's a clinical issue. They don't always necessarily want to think that maybe the issue is me, because that was my journey where I'm going, I have the practice, I have the kid, I have the marriage, I have everything on paper. Like, maybe the issue is actually me. Maybe I'm the issue. And is that really a comfortable conversation to have with yourself?
Yeah, no, for sure.
People don't want to admit that that's an uncomfortable, but what if when we're uncomfortable, what if that's the space that we need to be in to figure out how to grow?
Yeah.
I think being uncomfortable is a good thing.
Yeah. I want you to kind of speak to this for a second, but there's this whole concept too of like a business owner and getting everything that you want and realizing there's not happiness there. And we've all heard that, like, but it's really, really true.
But do we believe it?
Well, yeah, that's probably it.
Do we believe it?
You hear it, but do you?
Do you believe it? Right. Like, you know that there are people that are successful financially, but they are unhappy as humans. And I think that's a culmination of not paying attention to the inside of who we are as humans and putting everything on the outside. Money or something in the future. If you can't be happy now, how on God's green earth are you going to be happy later?
I feel like people, though, they justify it. They're like, let me figure that out with all the money.
I'm going to be happy when. Right, but what can money not buy? Money can't buy you the presence of living in the moment that is right now.
Yeah, that's so true.
You can't. And it is exhausting to think that we're going to find happiness sometime in the future and not think about how can we create our happiness right now? What is going really, are we really that unhappy now that we can't even find any semblance of gratitude in the moment that we are? Like, do we have to wait for a vacation to smile? Like, do we have to wait for a vacation to see our spouse, or, you know, to like cherish the moment with our child? Like, why do we constantly push off happiness? And for me, I think we get distracted. In this day and age, our mind is so distracted. Like, we are living in the age of distraction. We're living in an age of information, which is good because everything we access is within hand's reach. A computer, an iPad, an iPhone, whatever. But in this time more than ever, we are burning out. We're lighting the candle longer, we're burning out faster, and it is because we're absorbing all this information, and our brain as a function or as an organ is not meant to do that. Emotions are getting squandered because we're thinking the more we add on to everything else that's going on, that's going to get us to the next level, to the next capability, but we're losing connection. We're losing the idea that we need to feel. If we put even half as much time into how we feel versus what we learn or what we're trying to access, be a happier society. I mean, that's a societal issue, not even,
for sure.
We're going really deep there.
So do you recommend like social media fasts, phone fasts? Like, what's your take on that?
Honestly, I think I'm a better believer because I've done it. I've done the social media fast. I've done the iPhone fast. And I think everything in moderation. I think if you know where your boundaries are, you know that you need to put a limit, but we can't substitute the moments that we have right now and for something that's not reality. So what I mean by that is if you're at home with your kids, right, and they're doing something like playing a puzzle on the ground, something that kids want to do, you know, what is it that you're doing? Are you checking your phone or are you actually engaging with them? Or if you're out for coffee, are you on your phone looking at something else, or are you actually getting to know the person? I think knowing that being present in that moment is the way to create emotional memories. That's the key, because I was reading one study where it was talking about we remember more between the age of 20 and 35. And then there's this great big abyss until we get to about 65, which I thought was incredible. That's what, almost 30 years of your life, that by the time you get to 70, you still remember the ages of 20 to 35 the most. Why? Because that's when the most life changes happen. You created all these emotional memories. And now when you're on this autopilot stage of your life between 35 to 70, you're going, oh, I'm just going to go through the motions. But do we want a life that's just gone through the emotions? Or do we actually want to feel and live and breathe and know that it's there? And I can't help but think that in the age of social media, where everything is pseudo connection, that we're losing the idea of having a full life, and we don't value it. We don't value it. I mean, is it worth living if we're not enjoying where we are? I know.
That's some serious heavy stuff.
Yeah, hey.
Yeah. Okay, so a few things before we kind of wrap up here. I know you're working with dentists on this consulting. Tell us what that looks like, what you're doing.
Absolutely. So when they start the journey with me, a lot of times I like to make sure that are they ready to take change in their life? Are they ready to do the hard work of vulnerability? And this is not psychology, right? Okay. I'm like, if you need a therapist, please go do that because that's not me. But if you're ready to learn the tools that you need to have to deal with you as a human, as a person, to figure out what you want, then let's go. So I'm certified, so I'm able to give an emotional intelligence test, which is a great tool for me. Now, it's not everything, but it is an idea of what of the 28 to 32 competencies in emotional intelligence, ranging from resilience to stress management to empathy to, all these different topics that we don't even realize that emotional intelligence encompasses. It gauges where their strengths and vulnerabilities are. And then we sit down and we make a plan and we figure out what is holding them back.
So these guys out there, if they want to get in touch with you, find out more about what you're doing, where's the best place they should go?
Best place to go right now is probably my social. As far as Facebook, Instagram, I'm very accessible. I like being at the point where people can reach out to me, ask questions, and be interactive with that. Again, we're all about connection, not an informal way of doing it. So
at the Inspired Dentist.
At the Inspired Dentist. Yep.
Both
all my
Instagram
handles are
Facebook.
Yep.
Awesome.
At the Inspired Dentist.
Okay. Well, I totally appreciate you being here. I think this is a conversation. I wanted you here just because I think this is a super important conversation that needs to be had. So thank you so much for being here. Guys, if you want to reach out to Shakila, please do that. I think it'd be an investment completely worth the time, just so valuable many times over. Before we let them go, I always like to let the guests do the question of the episode. So you got a chance to ask viewers, podcast listeners, any question you want. What do you got?
I would say, are you willing to accept where you are right now as the happiest you've been? And if not, what are you going to change? Because I think the choice is within us. And if you believe that and you want better, there is better.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's better than any question I've ever asked. Just let you take over.
Chalk it up to the process.
Interviewing. All right, you killed it. I appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. Guys, thanks for being here. As always, best place to connect with me is on Instagram at Joshua Scott. Guys, I'll see you next episode.